Ever wonder what happens when American engineers decide that bigger is always better? These mechanical titans once ruled the heartland, some tipping the scales at over 100,000 pounds. From Montana workshops to Wisconsin factories, these iron giants changed farming forever. Today, we're counting down 10 colossal American tractors that most folks have never heard of, machines so massive they make today's equipment look like toys. 10. Allis-Chalmers 440. When Allis-Chalmers finally jumped into the four-wheel drive game in 1972, they were running behind the competition. Rather than start from scratch, they partnered with Steiger to build the 440, essentially a rebadged Bearcat painted in that distinctive Persian orange. This Wisconsin company's beast packed a turbocharged 426 cubic inch engine, cranking out 218 horsepower through a Fuller 10-speed transmission. The 440 represented Allis-Chalmers' determination to compete with the big boys after their dealers started defecting to sell Steiger and versatile machines. Built from 1972 to 1976, these tractors featured standard 3-point hitches when most competitors charged extra, making them popular with farmers who already owned Allis implements. The partnership with Steiger was brilliant. Allis got instant credibility in the four-wheel drive market, while Steiger kept their Fargo factory running during lean times. What made the 440 special wasn't just the power, but the timing. Allis-Chalmers was a massive industrial force in the early 1970s, with over 30,000 employees generating more revenue than IBM at one point. The 440 proved that even late arrivals could make their mark in the horsepower race. Though only produced for 4 years, these tractors earned respect for their reliability and that unmistakable orange paint that stood out in any field. Today, collectors prize these machines as symbols of industrial cooperation and the last hurrah of a once mighty manufacturer. 9. Massey Ferguson 4900. Built like a battleship and powered like a freight train, the Massey Ferguson 4900 brought 375 horses to the field, courtesy of a massive Cummins VT 903 V8 diesel engine. Introduced in 1980, this four-wheel drive articulated giant represented Massey's serious bid to compete with the American heavyweights during the power struggles of the late 70s and early 80s. The 4900 wasn't just about raw muscle, it featured an 18-speed transmission that gave operators precise control whether they were pulling massive air seeders across Canadian wheat fields or deep-ripping California's Central Valley. That big Cummins V8 had a distinctive sound that old-timers still remember, a deep rumble that announced serious business was about to happen. The hydraulic system pumped out enough flow to handle the biggest implements of the era, while the articulated frame provided the maneuverability that rigid designs couldn't match. What set the 4900 apart was its international heritage combined with American muscle. While Massey Ferguson was technically Canadian, these big four-wheel drives were built specifically for North American farming conditions and competed directly with homegrown brands. The company claimed to be the world's largest tractor manufacturer at the time, and the 4900 was their flagship, designed to prove they could build machines as tough as any domestic competitor. Production ended in the mid-1980s as the farm crisis took its toll, but these tractors earned a reputation for being nearly indestructible. Many are still working today, 4 decades after rolling off the assembly line, proof of overbuilt engineering from an era when manufacturers competed on durability as much as horsepower. Before we move on to the next one in the list, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. Thanks to all of you who do. 8. Versatile 1080 Big Roy. In 1977, Canadian manufacturer Versatile decided to throw their hat into the world's largest tractor ring with a machine so radical it looked like something from a science fiction movie. Named after company president Roy Robinson, a 6'4" cowboy boot-wearing character, Big Roy featured a backwards design with its 600 horsepower Cummins engine mounted in the rear and the cab up front, completely opposite to conventional four-wheel drives. This 30-foot-long behemoth weighed over 60,000 pounds and featured 8 wheels arranged on 4 axles, creating a unique look that turned heads wherever it went. The engineering was groundbreaking. Big Roy had a closed-circuit television system with a camera pointing at the drawbar and a 9-inch monitor in the cab. Essentially, the first backup camera on a farm tractor. The air-conditioned cab was massive, with seating for 3 full-sized adults and sliding doors on both sides like a minivan. Despite its impressive specs and forward-thinking features, Big Roy never entered production. The 4-axle design, while providing incredible traction, caused severe soil compaction as all 4 wheels on each side ran in the same track. Only one was ever built, making it one of the rarest tractors in existence. After a working life that included modifications and design changes evident in the many weld marks on its frame, Big Roy was restored to pristine condition in 2016 for Versatile's 50th anniversary. Today it resides at the Manitoba Agricultural Museum, a monument to the era when manufacturers pushed boundaries just to see what was possible. The fact that Versatile built their factory in Winnipeg but sold extensively to American farmers makes Big Roy part of shared North American heritage. 7. Wagner WA17. Before John Deere dominated the articulated tractor market, there was Wagner, the Portland, Oregon company that literally invented the modern 4-wheel drive farm tractor. The WA17, producing 250 horsepower from a Cummins NH250 engine, 280 GP in turbocharged versions, was cutting edge when it appeared in the early 1960s, featuring Wagner's patented POW-R-Flex coupling that allowed full power delivery even when the tractor was turning or operating on uneven ground. Wagner tractors were so advanced that in 1956, John Deere engineers watched a demonstration where a Wagner TR9 pulled a chisel plow straight up a steep hill while a competing case tractor slid backwards attempting the same feat. Deere executives took photographs that day, images that influenced their own 8010 design. The WA17 and its smaller sibling, the WA14, caught Deere's attention again in 1969, when they struck a deal that would change farming history. In what might be the strangest business deal in tractor history, John Deere contracted Wagner to build tractors for them, but with a 5-year non-compete clause that effectively ended Wagner's agricultural division. Only about 60 Wagner-built John Deeres were produced before Deere introduced their own 7020 in 1971. The deal gave Deere time to develop their own 4-wheel drives while eliminating their most creative competitor. Wagner's legacy lives on, though their articulated layout became the industry standard, and former Wagner dealers went on to create both Big Bud and Wright tractors. Those original Wagner tractors, painted in distinctive yellow after 1961, are now among the most sought-after collectibles in the tractor world, recognized as the machines that started the 4-wheel drive transformation. 6. International Harvester 4586. When International Harvester needed a heavy hitter for their 4-wheel drive lineup in 1976, they turned to Steiger of Fargo, North Dakota, to build them a monster. The 4586 packed 300 horsepower from a massive 13.1-liter IHDV 800 V8 turbocharged diesel, making it one of the most powerful tractors of its era. Built from 1976 to 1981, this collaboration between two industrial giants represented the best of both companies. The 4586 wasn't just about brute force. It featured sophisticated engineering for its time, including hydrostatic power steering, hydraulic wet disc brakes, and a cab with air conditioning that was considered luxurious by 1970 standards. The big V8 engine produced an incredible 725 foot-pounds of torque at just 1,800 revolutions per minute, perfect for pulling the massive implements that were becoming standard on large farms. With a 170-gallon fuel tank and the ability to be ballasted up to 34,000 pounds, this tractor was built for marathon sessions in vast fields. What made the 4586 special was its heritage. International Harvester traced its roots back to Cyrus McCormick's Reaper from 1834, making them perhaps the most historically significant name in American agriculture. By the 1970s, IH was still a Fortune 500 giant, and the 4586 represented their determination to remain competitive in the high horsepower market. The partnership with Steiger was strategic genius, combining IH's powerful engines and massive dealer presence with Steiger's proven four-wheel drive chassis expertise. Though International Harvester's agricultural division would merge with Case in 1985, the 4,586 stands as a monument to industrial cooperation during the golden age of big iron. Many of these tractors are still earning their keep on farms today, proof of the overbuilt engineering philosophy of the era. 5. Case I Steiger Quadtrac 620. When Case IH introduced the Quadtrac system in 1997, they changed high horsepower farming forever. The Steiger 620 Quadtrac, with its 4 independently driven oscillating tracks and 620 rated horsepower, peaking at 682, became the ultimate expression of this technology. In 2016 Nebraska Tractor Test Laboratory results, it set records for drawbar fuel efficiency, horsepower, and maximum pull, outperforming every track competitor. The Quadtrac 620 represents over 20 years of track technology evolution, combining the Steiger name acquired from the legendary Fargo manufacturer in 1986 with Case IH engineering. The 4-track system distributes the tractor's massive weight across a larger footprint than wheels, reducing ground pressure while providing incredible traction. That 12.9-liter FPT engine with dual turbo technology delivers its power through a proven 16-speed power shift transmission, allowing the 620 to pull the widest implements at speeds that would have been impossible just a generation ago. The significance of the Quadtrac goes beyond impressive numbers. This machine represents the merger of two giants, Case and International Harvester, combined with the DNA of Steiger, the company that pioneered big four-wheel drives in Fargo. When farmers needed to cover more acres with fewer passes, reduce compaction, and maximize fuel efficiency, the Quadtrac 620 delivered. It proved that domestic engineering could still lead the world in agricultural machinery. The sight of a Quadtrac 620 pulling a 60-foot air seeder or massive tillage tool across the prairie demonstrates how far farm equipment has come. With these machines regularly working 24-hour shifts during planting and harvest, they become the backbone of large-scale agriculture. 4. Versatile 1150. After their experimental Big Roy proved too radical for production, Versatile came back with the 1150 in 1981, a conventional but incredibly powerful tractor that pushed the limits of what farmers thought possible. With 470 horsepower from an 18.8-liter Cummins engine and weighing in at 35,000 pounds, the 1150 was Versatile's answer to the question of how much power farmers really needed. The 1150 took a more traditional approach than Big Roy, but incorporated lessons learned from that wild experiment. Available with either massive dual tires or triple tires on all corners, this giant could put its enormous power to the ground without excessive slippage. The Winnipeg-built machine featured Versatile's proven articulated frame that had made them the leader in four-wheel drive sales, at one point controlling 70% of the market. The big Cummins diesel was basically industrial equipment adapted for agricultural use, providing the kind of reliability that farmers working thousands of acres absolutely required. What made the 1150 legendary wasn't just its size, but its timing. Introduced during the early 1980s farm crisis, it represented optimism about agriculture's future when many manufacturers were scaling back. Versatile understood that farms were getting larger and time windows for planting and harvesting were getting shorter. The 1150 could pull implements that previously required 2 tractors, changing the economics of large-scale farming. Though Versatile would change hands multiple times over the following decades to Ford New Holland, then Bueller, and eventually Ross Somash, the 1150 established design principles still used today. Farmers who ran these giants remember them as nearly unbreakable machines that could work around the clock during critical field operations, embodying the go big or go home mentality that defined prairie agriculture. 3. Big Bud 525/50. While the Big Bud 747 gets all the glory as the world's largest tractor, the company built an entire line of giants that transformed large-scale farming. The 525/50, producing 525 horsepower from a Cummins KTA 1150 engine, represented the sweet spot of the Big Bud range massive power in a package that could actually be mass-produced. Built in Havre, Montana from 1979 to 1982, these tractors were born from necessity when Wagner dealers were left without four-wheel drives to sell after John Deere's exclusive deal. The Big Bud story is pure American entrepreneurship. When Northern Manufacturing Company started building these monsters in the 1970s, they used proven industrial components, Cummins engines from the mining industry, Clark axles built for earth movers, and Fuller transmissions designed for heavy trucks. The philosophy was simple: build them tough, make them serviceable, and don't add unnecessary complexity. The 525/50 embodied this approach perfectly, delivering reliable power without the electronic complications that would plague later generations of farm equipment. What set Big Bud apart was their customization. Farmers could essentially order their tractor built to specification, choosing everything from gear ratios to hydraulic configurations. The 525/50 and its siblings were particularly popular in the northern Great Plains and Canadian prairies, where massive fields demanded maximum efficiency. These tractors helped establish a small Montana town as an unlikely center of agricultural creativity. The company built around 500 tractors before ceasing production in 1991. But their influence continues. In 2023, Big Bud returned to production with modern versions that maintain the original philosophy of mechanical simplicity and overbuilt toughness. The fact that many original Big Buds are still working after 40-plus years proves that Montana farmers and engineers knew exactly what agriculture needed. 2. John Deere 9 RX 830. When John Deere unveiled the 9 RX 830 in 2024, they didn't just build a tractor, they built the most powerful production farm tractor ever offered by an American manufacturer. With 830 rated horsepower that peaks at an incredible 913, this four-track giant costs $1.2 million and represents the absolute pinnacle of modern agricultural technology. The 18-liter JD18 engine with dual turbochargers puts out 3,123 foot-pounds of torque, numbers that would make semi-truck manufacturers jealous. The 9 RX 830 isn't just about raw power, it's about putting that power to work efficiently. The four-track system can handle 84,000 pounds of ballasted weight while maintaining flotation that protects soil structure. The hydraulic system flows 168 gallons per minute with the optional triple pump setup, enough to power the massive air seeders and tillage tools that define modern farming. Inside the command view 4+ cab, operators control this beast through technology that would seem like magic to farmers from previous generations, including autonomous ready systems that point toward a driverless future. The significance of the 9 RX 830 extends beyond impressive specifications. This tractor represents John Deere's answer to the reality of modern agriculture. Farms are getting larger, labor is getting scarcer, and weather windows are becoming more unpredictable. When you need to plant 5,000 acres in a week or harvest before an approaching storm, the 9 RX 830 delivers. At over $1,000 per horsepower, it's an investment that only makes sense for the largest operations. But for those farmers, it's a game changer. The fact that Deere builds these monsters in Waterloo, Iowa, continuing a tradition of agricultural advancement dating back to 1837, proves that U.S. manufacturers still lead the world in high horsepower machinery. 1. Big Bud 747. The undisputed king of all tractors, the Big Bud 747 stands alone as the world's largest farm tractor. Built in Havre, Montana in 1977 by Ron Harmon and the crew at Northern Manufacturing Company. This one-of-a-kind giant originally produced 760 horsepower from a 16-cylinder Detroit diesel engine, later upgraded to generate 1,100 horsepower. At 27 feet long, 20 feet wide, and 14 feet tall, with special 8-foot diameter tires and a 1,000-gallon fuel tank, it tips the scales at over 100,000 pounds. Built for the Rossi Brothers cotton operation in California at a cost of $300,000, over $1.5 million in today's dollars, the 747 was designed for deep-ripping, breaking hard-pan soil up to 6 feet deep. The tractor worked for 11 years in California, then moved to Florida before returning home to Montana in 1997, where the Williams brothers used it to pull an 80-foot cultivator covering 1.3 acres per minute. The 747's design was ahead of its time, featuring an 8-track stereo system, air conditioning, and buddy seats in a cab built when most tractors barely had heaters. The Big Bud 747 represents more than just bragging rights. It symbolizes agricultural ambition at its peak. Built in small-town Montana by a company that started as a Wagner dealer, it proved that breakthrough thinking wasn't limited to corporate giants. When tire manufacturer United Tire Company went bankrupt in 2000, replacement tires became impossible to find, effectively retiring the tractor from regular service. After restoration and new custom Goodyear tires, the 747 now resides at the Heartland Museum in Clarion, Iowa, where a special building was constructed just to house it. Named after Boeing's 747 jumbo jet, this tractor remains unmatched nearly 50 years after its construction, a permanent monument to the era when manufacturers competed to build the biggest, baddest machines the world had ever seen. From Montana workshops to Iowa factories, these mechanical monsters defined an era when American engineering meant building things bigger, tougher, and more powerful than anyone thought possible. While today's farms run on GPS and computers, these iron giants remind us of a time when pure mechanical muscle ruled the fields. These titans didn't just plow fields, they plowed new ground in engineering, proving that sometimes the answer really is just to build it bigger. If you enjoyed learning about these forgotten giants of American farming, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment about which tractor impressed you most. Remember, somewhere out there, some of these beasts are still pulling their weight, 4 decades after everyone said they were too big to be practical.